Good afternoon. I'm Jovita Thomas Williams, Senior Vice President of Human Resources, and I am delighted to welcome you to our virtual Ether Day celebration. One of the most special parts of Ether Day is that it brings people from all over Mass General together to celebrate long careers, institutional knowledge, and the accomplishments of colleagues. While we are again unable to be together physically, it is essential that we continue the Ether Day tradition and celebrate our many loyal and esteemed colleagues. When we held our first virtual Ether Day event last year, I thought it would be one and done. I so looked forward to being back in the Bullfinch tent, watching the Ether Day dancers and seeing you all in person, wearing your shiny gold pens and bright, colorful ribbons. Yet, here we are. Virtual has continued to weave its way into our daily lives, and in many cases, it probably is here to stay. While it brings the freedom of being able to connect from anywhere, it takes away from the physical connections that are so important to what we do here at MGH. Until we can celebrate in person again, I will leave you with this. At least this virtual event won't include someone asking, "Can you hear me now?" Or my personal favorite, "You're still on mute." Our first speaker today is Jonathan Kraft, the chairman of MGH Board of Trustees. Today, Jonathan is celebrating his 11th year on the MGH Board of Trustees. Welcome, Jonathan.
Jovita, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be here today. I love Ether Day because for me, and I know the entire Board of Trustees, Mass General is its people. We've done extraordinary things here over the last 200 quarter years, but it's strictly because of the people. And when you have turnover in people, it's hard to create the culture, the longevity that's critical to building a special place. And Mass General is an extraordinary place. And for me, we're 19 months into the pandemic, and I know I talked about this last year, but I had the privilege of walking, just the humbling privilege of walking through the hospital in March, April, May of 2020. And I saw things and bravery, courage, service that just completely blew me away. And now, as we've come into 21, as we've had to give our normal course of healthcare while still helping all aspects of our community, not just those people in the hospital, but people in all of our surrounding communities, fight the virus, get the vaccine, help them and treat them if they get it, and help people in our community from spreading it. We've done all of that while we've done the research to help with one of the big vaccines that's been approved. We helped write the playbook for how to treat it. And I can just tell you that everybody on the board is so thankful for everybody who works in the hospital. And I would just close with telling you what somebody who I work with pretty closely, who's been at the hospital for over 4 decades, said to me. And this person told me that this year, she said to me, "I'm always inspired by the people of Mass General. This year has been the most inspiring of all." On behalf of the board, again, thank you all so much for an extraordinary year.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm so happy and grateful to be here with you today, celebrating with you after this very, very difficult year. It seems more important than ever that we take time out and acknowledge all that you do for our patients and for each other every day. Thank you. We treated our first patient 200 years ago, and it is your commitment to excellence that helps MGH endure so we can welcome and treat patients for 200 more years and beyond. Even though we're meeting virtually, I hope that you can feel as I do that we can still connect during this very special event. No matter how long you've been here, 30, 40, or even more years, your knowledge, your experience and your longevity is an essential part of the MGH and our mission to be a diverse, and inclusive, and a welcoming place for everyone. Thank you for your years of dedication and service to the MGH. Jovita.
Thank you, Marcella. If you are celebrating a milestone this year, we hope that no matter where you are wearing with pride your gold Mass General pin and service milestone ribbon. You should have received it in your home mail earlier this week. Today, we will recognize the 3,910 employees who are celebrating a milestone of 5, 10, 15, 20, up to 60 years of service. As I walk through the milestone years, we will feature photos of your MGH colleagues who are celebrating today, taken here on the Bullfinch lawn during this year's special display of life-size Ether Day pins, or at home featuring the honoree with their Ether Day pin and a ribbon. Now, let's take a little trip down memory lane, shall we? 5 years ago, in 2016, 1,265 MGHers joined our team in a year that saw Hamilton explode to Broadway popularity. This Is Us premiered on NBC, and we had the release of Beyoncé's Lemonade album. In sports, the Chicago Cubs won a World Series for the first time in 108 years, and our beloved Patriots beat the Falcons in a stunning overtime comeback. And of course, that year, the #1 song was One Dance by Drake. Donning the white ribbons today are the 835 employees who began working at the MGH in 2011. In that year, Prince William and Kate Middleton got married. The last Oprah Winfrey show was broadcast, and Bridesmaids was the tops at the box office. Our Patriots made it to the Super Bowl, but unfortunately lost to the Giants. A #1 song in 2011 was Rolling in the Deep by Adele. In 2006, 728 of your MGH colleagues rolled into the hospital for the first time. The newspaper headlines that year were all about a thing called social media, as Facebook became available to any user over the age of 13 and Twitter.com launched. Posting a hashtag TBT or Throwback Thursday photo became popular in 2006. Appropriately, Western Union also sent its final telegram in 2006. A #1 song that year was Bad Day by Daniel Powter. In the year 2001, headlines were dominated by the September 11 terrorist attacks. But there are happier reasons to remember 2001. Most notably, 549 of today's honorees started their MGH careers. That year, the first Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, hit the box office. Favorite TV shows included my personal favorite, Friends, CSI, and ER, and our team, the Patriots, beat the St. Louis Rams in the Super Bowl. The #1 song in 2001 was All For You by Janet Jackson. 25 years ago in 1996, Atlanta hosted the Summer Olympics, and Tickle Me Elmo was on every kid's Christmas list. Dolly, the clone sheep, was born, and the Patriots sadly lost the Super Bowl to the Green Bay Packers. Most importantly, 180 of those celebrating today started work at the MGH. A #1 song that year was Macarena by Los Del Rio, which became a dance floor phenomenon. I think we've all seen the Ether Day dancers do the Macarena a time or two. Here's hoping we can see them back live and in person next year. 150 of you began your MGH careers in 1991, a year that saw Kentucky Fried Chicken officially change its name to KFC. The Silence of the Lambs won the Big Five Oscars: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Writing. And Operation Desert Storm began. Everything I Do for You by Bryan Adams was the #1 song for 1991. In 1986, 35 years ago, 126 of today's honorees joined the MGH family. That year, Liberty Weekend, a multi-day event, celebrated the refurbishing and reopening of the Statue of Liberty. Big movies included Top Gun, Crocodile Dundee, and Platoon. The Celtics were the NBA champions, and the Red Sox went to the World Series, but I know none of you want to talk about that. The #1 song, That's What Friends Are For, by Dionne Warwick, Elton John, Gladys Knight, and Stevie Wonder. 40 years ago, in 1981, 71 of today's honorees started the daily commute to Charles MGH Station. Headlines at the time included Sandra Day O'Connor being the first female to be appointed to the Supreme Court. The chicken dance hit America's dance floors, despite being written 30 years before. Top movies included Raiders of the Lost Ark, On Golden Pond, and Superman 2. The Celtics were again NBA champions, and the #1 song was Physical by Olivia Newton-John. 45 years ago, 42 of your colleagues were doing training runs up the Bullfinch building stairs, trying to be like Rocky, which, along with King Kong, All the President's Men, and A Star is Born, were the top movies for 1976. That year, Steve Wozniak and Stephen Jobs founded Apple Computers in a California garage, and Happy Days, Laverne and Shirley, and MASH were our TV favorites. I hope that no matter where you are, you'll take a moment to applaud your colleagues for their dedication and commitment to the MGH community. Now, let's introduce you to today's most special honorees, those celebrating 50 or more years of service. Congratulations, all.
I started here when I was 18, and I worked from 18 to now, and it's a very beautiful place. It came like a part of my family for the 50 years I've been here.
I joined the Mass General as a surgical intern in 1966, having graduated from Harvard Medical School. I was fortunate enough to go to NIH in lieu of going to Vietnam.
All I remember the most was escaping from Cuba from Fidel Castro in 1966 with on Vietnam War and everything that was going on in the world at that time.
Most of us that began the journey in medicine in the 1970s were coming through a very tumultuous decade. The 1960s were when I was in college and in medical school, and were, of course, the largest upheaval in the United States until perhaps the present time.
Because I remember as a student nurse, I always wanted to have a voice in something. So we used to walk up Cambridge Street, and there were lots of demonstrations up at the top of Cambridge Street.
There was a fair amount of diversity of opinion as to what the nature of being an American should or would be.
I think it was just a little bit of a beginning of a disturbing time for the teenage population and the 20-year-olds, which I was at the time. But again, I didn't get involved in any of that because education, it was really important to be a student nurse. And we didn't have vacations. We went 3 straight years as a student nurse.
Boston was a very different place than it is now.
Government Center was then Scully Square.
Boston was terribly run down. Beacon Hill, they didn't clean the streets. It smelt a bit like Cairo from where I'd been in my youth. And the potholes on Storrow Drive were terrible. My little English sports car had to have its suspension redone every now and then.
You know, the MGH was such a remarkable place. Excellence shimmering in a city that was much, much less cosmopolitan than it is today.
But I was delighted to come to the General because they really wanted to know what you thought.
I just was so impressed with the breadth of the Mass General and the collegiality and
the character of the leaders was very remarkable then. Walter Bauer and Paul Russell. I think Churchill was the head of surgery when I was an intern.
They were very keen on the patient. The patient was special. And the patient will tell you what you need to work on to try to help your field.
I started working here in July 1961. I came originally looking for a summer job, but that was 60 years ago.
I had a National Science Foundation fellowship, so I had the portability to go to any institution that I wanted to for a couple of years, for a 2-year period, and yet the Kitts was so persuasive and charismatic and welcoming that I picked MGH with no idea that I'd be here for 50 years.
Anesthesia research was relatively new. You know, we were only a department shortly before, and but Dick was very good at recruiting. Dick Kitts, the chairman.
Oh, right.
So he used to say to the research people, we have the highest density of indirect costs per square foot of anyone because basically we have so few square feet.
Yeah.
And a wonderful young engineer who was there took some chalk and drew a square on the floor around the chair that I was sitting in and labeled it as my office. And that was the first clue that space was a big issue in enabling research.
But we built many lifelong friendships during that time.
My department, Blood Transfusion Service, when I joined here, it was still a very new science. The blood bank had only existed for 19 years when I came here. It started down in the basement of the Mosley building. It had moved before I came. And I was under the immunologist, Dr. Grove Rasmussen, and then Charlie Huggins. And he's the one involving in the freezing and deglissing of frozen blood. And that played a big role in all the new open heart surgeries and the other high substance uses.
I worked in the medical intensive care unit, and the director at the time was Dr. Peter Yurchak, who unfortunately has passed away, who was a cardiologist. And I stood side by side with him, and we put the first PA line into a patient in the medical ICU. So that was 50 years ago. Wow. And he said to me, guaranteed, you will see medicine change. Medicine has changed tremendously. I do think that technology has enhanced how we treat patients.
When I was a senior resident on the inpatient service, Mass General installed what was at that time the second CT scanner in the country. And we were asking at the time, why is that necessary? We can diagnose a stroke without that. And now we look upon CT as a sort of a necessary adjunct and rely upon MR and PET imaging now. So there's been these widespread changes in the clinical care and delivery of care.
When I got to Mass General, to do a blood gas took 20 minutes in the middle of a surgery. That was a long time, you know. Now you have a pulse oximeter on your finger and it's all instantaneous. It's just amazing. Ron Neubauer and Jeff Cooper in the lab that I shared with them were developing the first electronic anesthesia machine that did all kinds of things.
And then we got into ultrasound and transcranial Doppler for the patient. And then we got into antithrombotic therapy with the medical service, a great, great combo. We had a great, wonderful combination of neurology and medicine. And we changed the practice of medicine for antithrombotic therapy. It changed it in the world, as did diagnosis.
Vacuum tubes to computers. Nurses using monitors that ran with vacuum tubes that took time for them to warm up. And so the nurse would call and say, our monitor's not working. And we'd say, wait 10 minutes and call us again if it's still not working. When Ron was doing the development of flexible monitoring, then there were actual computers at the nurse's station being used, programmed in the way that they could be used as a central station to tell you where the monitor was that was complaining about a heart rate or something. And flexible monitoring thing was another one of the technical things that's bringing the technology to the patient.
And the moment where that idea arose was when an anesthesiologist had the experience of transporting a patient in a dark elevator, was not able to see that the patient was turning blue. He came down to the bioengineering unit to tell that story. He trusted us enough to tell the story. And to us, it was obvious that the answer was as simple as a Sony Walkman, which was a popular device at the time, to go with the patient. And we started to sketch on the blackboard, and that led to a sequence of events of collaborating with industry. Now that he would not have made a connection with anybody interested in the technology that might help in a situation like that, were it not that we were all in the same institution.
Yes, I think that's right. The MGH is the nidus where scientific progress and basic scientists work on a problem.
Clinical work and science go hand in hand, even basic science. There's a tradition of appreciation that goes through the departments, and many people who are clinicians are still involved in basic research. And that integration is part of the vitality of the institution.
I particularly was involved in much of the growth around the research activities during my tenure as chairman. We started the Charlestown facility, which of course became a major outpost for quality and quantity of work for the entire hospital.
Just taking a gamble on Charlestown, I remember the research committee meeting where they said, basically we think if we double space, you researchers will double research income. I'm like, wow. And they took that risk, and it took a while to pan out, but we did it. And I think that's the strong leadership and the ability of the trustees to grab opportunities.
Changes that have occurred at the MGH are fascinating, as it has become bigger and bigger and a colossal institution. The struggle is always to keep the excellence there and the spirit of camaraderie intact. I think we've done remarkably well.
For the most part, we all wear short coats, short white coats at Mass General. Certainly in the Department of Medicine, that's been the routine. And in many institutions, the short white coat was the signature, if you like, of a student or a medical student or an intern or resident. And the faculty would often wear long coats. but not at MGH. And I remember asking, why do we wear short coats? And the answer was, we're all students. And as a result, we're all mentors as well, because we're teaching each other.
Once you've received some good support or guidance, then you're better positioned to pass that information along and understand the value for younger people. That's one of life's satisfactions, when people that you've worked with in the past, either as co-mentors or as fellows, who step up and assume leadership positions, you take pride in their success.
I think in my experience about is communication. Everyone, if you have a good idea and they can benefit from that, everybody listens unless you implement it. I think that's the key to the success of MGH.
Among the things that make MGH great are not just the great physicians, but we have the best nursing staff, I think, in the world.
And they've taught our residents so much. I tell the residents, when you bring a patient to the floor, you bring them and you get the nurses around and make a plan with the nurses.
Physicians and nurses certainly have a huge relationship, and we both have voices in terms of patient care.
And when I was teaching pharmacology at the medical school, we're just teaching basic science. They said, no, what do I give the patient when? And I said, why are you so worried about that? Oh, I don't want to look foolish in front of the nurses.
Oh, wow. So we do have a voice.
The people, the patient, the nurses, the doctors, they're all been like a family. At this time and at that time, everybody seems to be like a family. Everybody works together, and I wouldn't do it no other way again more than the years I spent here, because this is the best place in the world to work.
Even back in my early days as a trainee in the main lab, we all worked together, and we all for the good of the patients.
I always say to my fellows, patient care belongs in your grant. What are you doing for patient care? You may not be doing it this year, maybe 20 years from now, but what are you doing?
I mean, we have so many grateful patients. It's because I think people just rally around an individual patient, and the patients feel very, very, very comfortable being with us and are grateful for that. We even have patients that are willing to leave Cape Cod to come up to the Mass General.
Myself, I have many opportunities to work in the private sector or even many other institutions around the country. And I always choose to stay because the camaraderie between everyone.
But I think what I'm proud of is that I've been allowed to hang around this long and have it kind of be my choice. And it's like they always find something that I could be useful at.
When we consider retirement, the first thing we think is we're having a lot of fun, right, Sheila?
Absolutely.
I guess we could have to agree that we're all alive, and we're no longer youngsters, being somewhere between 50 and 55, 60 years at the Mass General.
I think it's funny, the 50th anniversary, because they used to give out clocks, and this was my 30-year clock, and I figured if they kept it up, by the time I got to be 50 years anniversary, I'd have a grandfather clock. But
I will miss it because there's a time that I will have to leave. But that time haven't come right yet. But that's one thing I will miss about Mass General. Mass General is a wonderful place to work for.
Good afternoon. The video you just saw gave us a quick snapshot of some of today's most honored guests, those celebrating 50, 55, or 60 years of service. Now I have the privilege of telling you a bit more about them. Let's start with our 50-year honorees. Dr. Dennis Ausiello is today's first 50-year honoree. Dr. Ausiello is the director of the Center for Assessment Technology and Continuous Health, a program he founded as a joint effort between Massachusetts General Hospital and MIT. He brought together physicians, scientists, and engineers to provide real-time measurement and analysis of the human phenotype in wellness and disease. Dr. Ausiello previously served as Chief of Medicine at the MGH from 1996 until his retirement in 2013. Dr. Ausiello is a nationally recognized leader in academic medicine, having been elected to the National Academy of Medicine in 1999 and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2003. He has written for many publications, including the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, on various health subjects, including human genetics, clinical trials, and the relationship between academics and industry. Understanding the need for partnerships between academic medicine and private industry, Dr. Ausiello served as the lead director on the board of Pfizer Pharmaceuticals until his retirement from their board in 2018. He is currently on the board of microbiome company Seres Health, as well as Alnylam, an iRNA company. He also serves as an advisor to various biotech companies and venture capital companies working in the biotech and device area. Dr. Ausiello holds a BA from Harvard College and received his medical degree from the University of Pennsylvania. Sheila Burke graduated from the MGH School of Nursing in 1971 and has spent her entire nursing career here at Mass General. Sheila initially worked as a staff nurse on a general medicine unit, but soon developed an interest in critical care and transferred to the medical intensive care unit. Her interest in teaching led her to become the clinical educator for the medical and cardiac intensive care units, and eventually the arrhythmia and cardiac interventional units, where she oversaw the orientation and continuous education of the nursing staff. Today, she is a professional development specialist for the Knight Nursing Center, a position she has held for 26 years. A trip to mainland China in 1986 triggered Sheila's desire to become involved in international health. She became and continues to be a consultant for Project Hope in its critical care and emergency department program in China, consulting with and teaching nurses and physicians in several cities. She is also a member of the International Medical Surgical Response Team, IMSIRT, and has responded to care for victims of the Iran earthquake in 2004 and Hurricane Katrina in 2005. With scholarship assistance from the MGH Nursing Alumni Association and the LVC, Sheila entered the nurse practitioner program at the MGH Institute of Health Professions and graduated with a Master's of Science in Nursing in 2008. She credits this educational experience for improving her assessment skills, enhancing her knowledge of current health issues and treatment, participating in nursing research, and extending her involvement internationally. Sheila is currently serving as secretary of the MGH Institute of Health Professions Alumni Board of Directors. Dr. Herbert Carries is a neurosurgeon who practices here at the MGH and at Newton Wellesley Hospital. Dr. Carries graduated from Cornell University and attended the University of Michigan Medical School. He completed his internship at Bellevue Hospital in New York City and his residency at the State University of New York at Buffalo. He came to the MGH in 1971 as a clinical and research fellow in neurosurgery. From 1972 to 1980, Dr. Carries was the assistant director of neurosurgery at Harvard Medical School and Boston City Hospital. Dr. Carries is a Navy veteran, having served as a medical officer between 1964 and 1967. Thank you, Dr. Carries, for your service to both our country and our hospital. Dr. John Groden is professor of neurology at Harvard Medical School and an attending neurologist at the Massachusetts General Hospital. He graduated from Northwestern University and earned his medical degree from the University of Pennsylvania. His postgraduate training was in internal medicine at the University of Chicago Hospitals, in neurology at the Massachusetts General Hospital, and in neurochemistry at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. Between 1982 and 2021, Dr. Groden directed the MGH's Memory and Movement Disorders Clinic, which provide diagnostic services and continuing care for individuals with Parkinson's disease and related movement disorders, and for individuals with cognitive impairment and dementia. In 1984, Dr. Grodin established and led one of the first 5 NIA-funded Alzheimer's disease research centers in the United States. This center has had uninterrupted funding ever since. Investigators in the center have made numerous landmark discoveries and contributions to understanding the clinical aspects of Alzheimer's disease, as well as leading research into the cause, pathophysiology, and treatment of various dementing illnesses. Dennis Gergel first came to the MGH as part of a work-study program while he was a student at Northeastern. A few years later, after graduating from Northeastern, he returned to the MGH in 1971 and has been here with us ever since. Prior to his Northeastern studies, Dennis spent 4 years in the U.S. Air Force. It was there that he learned about basic electronics, which he says set him up for a lifelong career at MGH. Thank you, Dennis, for your service to our country. Dennis started at the MGH in 1971, repairing patient monitoring devices, moved to vacuum tubes, and then to operating systems. In 1995, his then department, Biomedical Engineering, asked him to take part in the development of a patient care system that included a central nurse's station using a Unix computer to display patient monitoring information. Dennis says biomedical engineering provided a great place to work and an excellent environment for learning. After helping to develop the central patient monitoring system, he took his skills and interest in computer networks to information systems, where he became an expert on a Unix system called Helix. Helix provided a program called SendMail to manage the hospital's early email functions. After Helix, Dennis focused on high-performance computing, and he worked with scientists, network administrators, and others who he called geniuses to integrate it into the hospital's daily operations. Dennis is semi-retired, but continues working at the MGH as a Bullfinch temp. Dr. Richard Johnson of dermatology first came to the MGH in 1971 after graduating from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and receiving his medical degree from McGill University in Montreal. After medical school, Dr. Johnson completed a fellowship at the NIH and a dermatology residency at the Harvard Combined Residency Program, where he was chief resident. Dr. Johnson is board certified in both dermatology and internal medicine and is an associate professor of dermatology at Harvard Medical School. His major research interests are skin diseases related to HIV/AIDS, diabetes, skin cancer, skin disease in organ transplant recipients, and tropical skin disorders. Dr. Johnson has co-authored 6 editions of Fitzpatrick's Color Atlas and Synopsis of Clinical Dermatology, the Color Atlas and Synopsis of Pediatric Dermatology, and has authored numerous journal articles. He serves on editorial boards for numerous professional journals and is a member of several academy associations, including the American Academy of Dermatology, the Massachusetts Medical Society, and the International AIDS Society. Dr. Philip Kissler was invited to train in neurology at the MGH after graduating from Harvard College and Columbia Medical School. He completed his internal medicine training at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York City. Prior coming to the MGH, Dr. Kissler served as chief of medicine at the 838 Tactical Air Force Hospital in Kansas during the Vietnam War. Thank you, Dr. Kissler, for your service. Dr. Kissler was invited to take on the MGH Stroke Service in 1978, and he ran the unit for 26 years. His clinical research centered on the diagnosis and prevention of cerebrovascular disease and has significantly helped change the practice of neurology, both diagnostically and therapeutically. According to Dr. Kissler, his most important contribution has been the care of thousands of MGH patients worldwide. Dr. Keith Miller was recruited to set up a laboratory in the MGH Department of Anesthesia in 1971, and he continues to be active in anesthesia research today. He is the Edward Mallinckrodt Professor of Pharmacology and Anesthesia at the Harvard Medical School and director of the Harvard Anesthesia Center for Training and Research. Dr. Miller completed a National Science Foundation fellowship in the chemistry department at the University of California at Berkeley, and was a research fellow in the departments of pharmacology and physical chemistry at the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom, where he was raised. Dr. Miller completed a National Science Foundation Fellowship in the Chemistry Department of the University of California at Berkeley and was a research fellow in the departments of pharmacology and physical chemistry at the University of Oxford in the United Kingdom, where he was raised. Dr. Miller has held a variety of hospital appointments over the years, including Vice Chair for Research Training, a position he continues to hold. In 1996, he was given the Excellence in Research Award from the American Society of Anesthesiologists. Dr. Ronald Neubauer earned his bachelor's degree in physics from MIT and his PhD in solid-state physics from Harvard. Dr. Neubauer enrolled in a National Science Foundation postdoctoral fellowship in biomedical engineering at MGH and Harvard University in 1971. And throughout his MGH career, he has been driven by the belief that technology can help make healthcare safer and more effective while simultaneously reducing cost. Along with his research partner, Dr. Jeffrey Cooper, Dr. Neubauer received federal funding to take a fresh approach to equipment design. They designed the Boston anesthesia machine, which immediately attracted national attention and was credited with driving redesigns of anesthesia machines and monitors at all the leading manufacturers. From 1984 to 2014, Dr. Neubauer was Associate Professor of Anesthesia at the Harvard-MIT Division of Health Sciences and Technology. He remains a lifetime member of HST's affiliated faculty. Dr. Neubauer's success in medical technology led him to propose, assemble, and direct MGH's Department of Biomedical Engineering, joining the existing clinical technical support groups together with his own research and development group, and connecting it with his work in teaching MIT graduate student courses and supervising sponsored research. In 1989, Dr. Neubauer was asked to become MGH's Senior Vice President for Research and Technology. He served in that role for 15 years, with MGH's research program, staff, and facilities tripling in size during his tenure. With the formation of Partners Healthcare Systems, his role broadened, also serving as its Vice President for Research Management. In 1998, Dr. Neubauer co-founded CIMIT, the Center for Integration of Medicine and Innovative Technology, a nonprofit consortium that linked Boston's major teaching hospitals with MIT and other engineering institutions, fostering interdisciplinary teams to develop and commercialize novel and cost-effective approaches to improving patient care. In 2019, the MGH, with the help of philanthropic support by the Eitan family, established an endowed professorship named in Neubauer's honor for a faculty member working on innovation in biomedical technology. Catherine Paddock has been a member of the MGH transplant surgery team for the last 50 years. Catherine was born and raised in New York. She received her bachelor's degree in sociology from the College of Mount St. Vincent, and after graduation moved to Beacon Hill. She was hired for an office job in the MGH transplant unit. Catherine quickly became fascinated with the clinical and research work of the transplant unit, and in 1972, she began working with Dr. Ben Kazemi, where she helped prepare NIH grant applications and supported Dr. Kazemi's clinical practice. She completed her MBA in 1983 at Anna Maria College and continued in a variety of roles in the transplant unit, retiring as administrative manager in 2015. She continues to work for Dr. Kazemi part-time. Catherine Winstone is a unit service associate on Ellison 7. Catherine began her MGH career working in dietary, now nutrition and food services, and later transitioned to the environment of care team in patient care services. Please join me in thanking Catherine and all our honorees celebrating 50 years of service to the MGH. The following individuals are celebrating 55 years today. Jose Guerrero, a research specialist in cardiology, came to the U.S. from Cuba in 1966, and days after arriving in Boston, he started here at the MGH in the Cardiac Research Laboratory under the leadership of Dr. Jerry Austin. When Jose talks about those he has worked with in the lab over his 55 years, the list includes many of MGH's cardiac giants. Jose's early days in the lab saw the development of the heart-lung machine and the intra-aortic balloon pump, which made it possible to create and advance new cardiac, surgical, and cardiology techniques. He witnessed the early years of the cardiopulmonary bypass machine. Since 1983, Jose has co-authored more than 100 scientific papers and patented several inventions as part of his work in the cardiac lab. Dr. John Potts graduated from the University of Pennsylvania Medical School in 1957 and came to the MGH for his internship and residency in medicine that same year. Following completion of his medical training in 1959, he joined the National Institutes of Health as a clinical associate and remained there until 1968. During his tenure, he was promoted to head of the section on polypeptide hormones, where he began his work on the structural analysis of parathyroid hormone and calcitonin. Dr. Potts returned to the MGH in 1968 and has remained here ever since. He has served as Chief of Endocrinology, Chair of the Department of Medicine, and Physician-in-Chief. In 1996, he became MGH's Director of Research. From 1981 to 1996, he was the Jackson Professor of Medicine at Harvard Medical School, and today serves as the Jackson Distinguished Professor of Medicine. Dr. Potts has been a pioneer in the chemistry and biology of parathyroid hormone and its role in clinical disorders of bone and mineral metabolism. He has authored more than 500 scientific publications. Over his career, he has earned many honors and awards, including the Kober Medal from the Association of American Professors in 2013 and the Robert H. Williams, MD, Distinguished Chair of Medicine Award from the Association of Professors of Medicine in 2002. In 2011, he was the inaugural recipient of the John T. Potts Jr., MD, Faculty Mentoring Award at MGH. Dr. Potts is currently Physician-in-Chief Emeritus and Director of Research Emeritus at the MGH. Dr. William Shipley completed his medical degree at Harvard Medical School in 1966, the same year he arrived at Mass General for a 2-year surgical residency. He trained in radiation oncology at the Harvard Joint Center before spending 1 year in London as part of the Harvard Medical School Moseley Fellowship. After joining the staff at Massachusetts General Hospital in 1974, Dr. Shipley became a clinical research leader in the area of genitourinary oncology, evaluating multimodality cancer care. He worked with colleagues in urology, medical oncology, radiation oncology, and pathology to implement treatment that reduced the need for radical bladder-removing surgery, which had until then been the only treatment. Dr. Shipley also focused on the elimination of localized prostate cancer using a combination of androgen deprivation and radiation. He is the Andres Soriano Professor of Radiation Oncology at the Harvard Medical School and leads the MGH's Clinical Research Unit in the Department of Radiation Oncology. In November 2009, he was awarded the American Society for Therapeutic Radiology and Oncology's Gold Medal for outstanding clinical contributions in radiation oncology, which is the Society's highest honor. Today's last honoree is celebrating 60 years with Massachusetts General Hospital. Linda White arrived at the MGH in 1961 as a trainee in the blood bank. A native of Maine, she was fresh out of high school and staying with her sister in Boston when she came to interview. After 7 years in the blood bank, a job opened up in the reference lab, and she said this is where she found her MGH home. Over the years, she said, she's received a lot of training and additional responsibilities, including a federal certification for competence in clinical laboratory work from Health and Human Services. Linda continues to work part-time today, mentoring and sharing her years of expertise in the reference lab, and we thank her for her extraordinary 60 years of service. Congratulations to everyone who is celebrating a milestone anniversary today. Thank you for the contributions you make to our hospital community, and thank you for your loyalty and dedication to our mission. Having been part of this unique and incredible community for 32 years, this is not my first Ether Day, but it is my first Ether Day as MGH president, and I am honored to have been part of today's celebration. The people of Massachusetts General Hospital are one of a kind, talented, trustworthy, resilient, and dedicated to serving our patients and their families. I am humbled and proud to be part of such an extraordinary team. Thank you.